Everyone, please stand, if able, for presentation of colors in the national anthem. Color Guard, present the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the retiring of the colors. Please remain standing for the invocation presented by Chaplain Major Liu.
Please join me in prayer. Almighty God, Lord of history and author of liberty, we gather today in grateful remembrance of the brave men and women whose courage helped to shape the birth of this nation. On this sacred ground of memory, we honor those who stood at Bunker Hill 251 years ago. Though many were ordinary citizens, farmers, craftsmen, merchants, and fathers, they answered an extraordinary call. They faced uncertainty, hardship, and sacrifice with steadfast resolve, believing that freedom was worth defending and that future generations might live in liberty. As we commemorate their valor, grant us wisdom to learn from their example. Inspire us to be people of courage when facing adversity, people of integrity when confronted with difficult choices, and people of unity in times of division. Bless the citizens of Commonwealth, the city of Boston, our armed forces, our veterans and first responders, and all who continue to serve the cause of freedom and justice. May we never take for granted the blessings purchased through the sacrifices of those who came before us. As we reflect upon our nation's past, guide us toward a future marked by honor, responsibility, and hope. And may we be faithful stewards of the liberties entrusted to us. And may we strive to leave a stronger, more united nation for generations yet to come. All these things we ask for your holy name. Amen.
Please be seated. Now, please welcome Superintendent Torona Armstrong to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. What a beautiful day. On behalf of the National Park Service, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you and express my sincere appreciation for your presence here today. Thank you for joining us as we gather to commemorate this important occasion. I would also like to acknowledge our partners, the American Legion, J.W. Conway Bunker Hill Post 26, and the Bunker Hill Monument Association. We thank you for your leadership and commitment to telling our shared national story. To our distinguished guests, thank you for honoring us with your presence today. Your support and participation help make this commemoration especially meaningful. As stewards of our nation's national and cultural heritage, the National Park Service committed to preserving the sites that define who we are as a nation and tell the stories of our shared history. At the National Parks of Boston, we have the profound honor to preserve and interpret many sites and stories of the American Revolution and beyond, along the Freedom Trail and Black Heritage Trail and across the Boston Harbor Islands. Here at Bunker Hill Monument, we proudly steward the rich history of what happened on this battlefield 251 years ago today, and the sacrifices that we made in the fight for freedom and liberty. On the fateful and historic day, patriots from across New England stood against British forces as political resistance gave way to open war. Each of those soldiers, guided by their own hopes, aspirations, and convictions, fought for deeply held ideas of liberty, justice, and duty. Throughout the Revolutionary War and in the generations that followed, the events that unfolded here at Bunker Hill Monument became a powerful symbol of America's resolve and enduring commitment to freedom. The service and sacrifice of those who fought on this ground consecrated to the very place where we gathered today, and remind us that cause of liberty sustained throughout the work we continue as Americans. Likewise, the Bunker Hill Monument, dedicated in 1843, has stood nearly 2 centuries as a landmark of Boston and a lasting tribute to the revolutionary heritage. Built to honor those who fought and died here, it continues to remind us that the ideals that shaped this nation and the responsibility to honor them in our own time. Today, on the 251st anniversary of this battle, and as we mark 250 years of our nation's founding, let us honor the legacy of those who fell here. We do so with gratitude, remembrance, and renewed sense of responsibility. May their courage continue to inspire us. Their sacrifice reminds us of their enduring cause of freedom. And their example guide us as we strive to uphold the ideals for which they fought. And at this time, it is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce a leader whose service reflects those ideas. Please join me in welcoming the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Superintendent Armstrong, for your leadership and for all that you do to care for our community and for our treasured history. Of all of the big events happening in Boston this summer, very, very big events, this one is one of the most important, as it is every year. And I'm so honored to share this day with all of you, because Boston is a city that is showing the world who we are right now. But what makes us special is that we very carefully treasure our history, tell the stories, and carry those lessons forward to help us fight for a better future today and no matter what is facing us. This is a commemoration that is well attended every year, and many of the folks who are here show up rain or shine, day in, day out, and whether it's a big anniversary year or not. I want to thank State Representative Danny Ryan, our Charlestown homegrown rep and partner for the City of Boston up in the State House. Thanks for all that you do. City Councilor Ruthie Louis-Jean, representing all of Boston at large here and always present. And I see Elaine from City Councilor Gabriela Colera Zapata's office as well. Thank you for not only representing Gigi, but for all that you do, Elaine, in the community. I am joined here by our Commissioner for Veteran Services, Commissioner Rob Santiago, the hardest working and best representative of any city veterans department anywhere in the country. Thank you for all of your service. And I'm very grateful to be joined by Secretary Goralnik of the Governor's Cabinet, as well as representatives from the National Park Service, Fish and Wildlife, and Parks, and of course, our British Consul General. Nice to see you, and thank you so much for bringing so many amazing fans to visit Boston in this moment, as well as the commander of the USS, commanding officer of the USS Constitution, Commander Schaefer, and thank you, Chaplain, for a really beautiful invocation. On Monday, I joined our Cabo Verdean community at Town Field in Dorchester to watch their country's first ever World Cup match on the big screen at our watch party. Spain was ranked second in the world. Cabo Verde was 67th. Spain has been in 17 World Cups. This was Cabo Verde's first. Spain has almost 50 million people. Cabo Verde is smaller than the city of Boston. So by the numbers, it shouldn't have been close. But against all odds, Cabo Verde dug in, defended for their lives, and walked off with a tie against one of the best teams on the planet. When the final whistle blew, people started going wild in Dorchester, and at Fan Fest on City Hall Plaza, we had impromptu parades that started all throughout the city. And even our Cabo Verdean police officers couldn't help themselves and jumped into the crowd, dancing with the fans. And that is who Boston is. The residents who showed up on Monday afternoon came believing their team belonged on that field because they understood a lesson learned here on this hill, passed down for generations. When we trust one another and fight for something bigger than ourselves, we can beat the odds. On Monday night, I doubt many Cabo Verdeans in Boston got much sleep. And 250 years ago last night, a band of merchants, fishermen, laborers, and apprentices didn't get much sleep either. They stayed up all night digging trenches, knowing they'd soon face the most powerful army in the world. The next afternoon, 3,000 British soldiers started up the hill. A local farmer watching the British advance later wrote that it felt like waiting to be swallowed up. Most of the militiamen had never seen combat before. They were ordinary people who were tired and frightened, and yet they stayed. They held their ground, not because they thought a victory was likely, not because they were certain everything would work out, but because they were ready to fight next to their neighbors, for their neighbors. They held their position as the British advanced because their neighbors held theirs. After hours of hard fighting, the revolutionaries lost the hill. But the British walked away stunned because the people of Boston had shown what they were capable of. The Redcoats suffered twice as many casualties as the Patriots. And every once in a while, an underdog shows the world a little something. A group of people who believe deeply in each other prove they belong. Now, there will always be things that scare us, from powerful armies to Lamine Yamal, but Boston has never let that stop us. And we never will, because we're still after what all of those community members were fighting for 251 years ago, a country and a city that's a home for everyone. I want to thank everyone here today, our veterans, our Gold Star families, the descendants of those who fought in this battle. Thank you for all that you do to make Boston a home for everyone, and may we keep believing in each other the way they did 251 years ago. Happy Bunker Hill Day. Now, my very deep honor and main function here today is to pass the microphone on to someone who is fighting for the city of Boston and for Charlestown and his district every day up at the State House, and someone who is also, as I've gotten to learn over the years, quite a history buff and can always bring something that I get to take away, some new fact about the incredible events that happened here. Thank you for all that you do. State Representative Danny Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for being here. Mayor, thank you for another great week of activities here in Charlestown, for keeping our streets safe and clean and bringing our community out. We really appreciate all you've done to showcase our neighborhood to the world. Thank you. And National Park Service, thank you always for interpreting our local history for those who come and visit. Thank you. And to kind of stick with the football and soccer theme, I do want to thank David Clay for the British Consul General. He comes every year and is very gracious in talking about the Battle of Bunker Hill. And I don't want to Monday morning quarterback, but I think if you sent in the Tartan Army, things would have been a little different. We've run out of provisions. Our merchants are at wit's end, and our infrastructure is doing all right, but it's been tested. But I do like the point of bringing up the World Cup and all that Boston can show to the world, and what the World Cup has shown to all of us, even if you're not a big fan. But every night for 90 minutes, we can all take a time out of what's going on in the world and the things that are keeping us up at night, and watch diplomacy be played out on a pitch rather than a battlefield. And I think that's the hope that we all need. I think that's the hope that the soldiers took here when they went into battle. I think they hoped for peace. And when peace wasn't there, they gave it all they could to get what they wanted in the end. And I think that's what we celebrate here. And hopefully there's more soccer in the future and less war. And with that, I just want to say happy Bunker Hill Day, and a solemn Bunker Hill Day, because we are commemorating those whose lives were lost here. But it's also, I am doing the Irish exit here today, and I'm doing it, well, I guess an Irish exit, you don't tell people you're leaving, but anyway. The Great and General Court of Massachusetts is meeting today, so we're in session right now. We're going to take votes tonight, and I get to represent this neighborhood there because of the sacrifices made here 251 years ago, and because of the men and women still serving in uniform, United States Navy, thank you, Commander Schaefer, and all others. So I go up there with that weight on my shoulders, knowing that I represent 40,000 people, but the beauty of that is whatever vote I take today, and there'll be a few of them, if you're not happy with it, you get to tell me in a coffee shop or online on Facebook. Sometimes I don't even want to look. And that's what it's all about. You know, representative democracy, and if you don't like the way it goes, you can always change who's in office. So I thank you all for allowing me to do that. And with that, I get to introduce somebody who's worked here for a very long time in the National Park Service, retired now, but is the co-president of the Bunker Hill Monument Association, and more importantly, a retired U.S. Army veteran, Bill Foley.
Navy veteran, actually. Good afternoon. On behalf of the Bunker Hill Monument Association, I'd like to thank our partners, the National Park Service and the J.W. Conway Bunker Hill Post 26, our distinguished speakers, honored guests, veterans, and Gold Star family members that are here with us today. The Bunker Hill Monument Association is proud to claim that its members have had a pivotal role in this important annual commemoration since 1825. I would like to speak briefly about an event that was very much part of the laying of the cornerstone of the Bunker Hill Monument that we celebrated last year, the 200th anniversary. It's a story that's seldom told, but very interesting. A local newspaper at the time called the Boston Recorder has a first-hand account of this event, and it was written and submitted on that very day, so it was fresh. I'll read portions of that article, and I ask that each of you try and visualize this grand procession of veterans, military, and citizens of Boston and the surrounding area. This is part of the article. It was a day to which many a veteran hero had looked forward with transport, as a remembrance of all that was most dear and romantic in history of their own lives and their country. Their children, too, and their children's children, the sons of their departed companions in danger and glory, their fellow citizens who, without toil, have shared the fruits of their valor, strangers, far remote, and members of other communities, all welcomed the day with joy and enjoyed the enthusiasm that it occasioned. So great was the concourse of citizens from abroad, with all the accommodations which our numerous taverns and boarding houses could furnish, and all the hospitality of our citizens, hundreds of gentlemen were obliged to take up lodgings on benches and sofas, or perchance on a tavern floor, or in barns, or wherever a vacant spot presented itself large enough to sustain their weary limbs. It has been estimated, we know not how, that a number of persons assembled on this occasion, including citizens of Boston, and around that time, the population of Boston was less than 60,000. But on that occasion, no less than 150,000 people showed up for this event along the route. Never before, it is presumed, was so great a concourse assembled in this metropolis. At 10:30 o'clock, in the ever-memorable 17th of June, the procession, commanded by General Lyman, moved from the State House through Park, Common, School, Washington, Union, Hanover, and Prince Streets across the Charlestown Bridge. Thence through Main, Green, and High Streets to Bunker Hill, the site of this monument that was soon to be built. In all this distance of at least a mile and a half, not a building but was filled with animated spectators, eager to behold what must doubtless be considered one of the most interesting spectacles ever witnessed in New England. By the way, the illustration that's in today's program would have been very similar to the large procession of people that were crossing the Charlestown Bridge in 1825, without the monument in the background, of course. The procession extended at least a mile, and although entirely unobstructed, was 35 minutes in passing the point where we took our station, the two reporters report. It was led by a corps of cavalry and 16 companies of light infantry in superb uniform. Then followed, chiefly in carriages, the survivors of the battle, 50 to 100 in number. Amazing. Each wearing on his breast the badge Bunker Hill, June 17, 1775. One of them displayed an old pouch, which he had used in the battle, and another his drum. It was a proud day for these hardy veterans, and we rejoice that they have been permitted to see it ere their final departure. The most interesting part of the procession was followed by about 200 officers and soldiers of the Revolution on foot with appropriate badges. Numbers of them walked with a firm step as if heaven had in reserve for them many years yet to come. Next came the Bunker Hill Monument Association to the number of 2,000. The Masonic orders from this state and others were larger. They were estimated at 3,000 Masonic that were present on that day. And they were dressed in their various insignia. The celebration of the Battle of Bunker Hill is past, and with heartfelt satisfactions, we record a brief outline of what we then saw and heard. That's the end of the newspaper article. On this day, 201 years ago, a procession of 8,000 citizens, military units, and veterans marched from the State House to these very grounds to honor the veterans who fought at the Battle of Bunker Hill, as we do today. The Bunker Hill Monument would forever be a lasting tribute to our nation's first veterans. Thank you. My pleasure to introduce Ranger Patrick Boyce, National Parks of Boston.
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick Boyce, and I'm one of the park rangers for Boston National Historical Park that's been interpreting the history of this site for 11 years. Before I wore the green and gray of the National Park Service, my day-to-day uniform was the desert or woodland camouflage fatigues of the U.S. Marine Corps. I served as an infantry officer, a public affairs officer, and a military policeman in Iraq and Afghanistan. In 1843, 11 surviving veterans of the Battle of Bunker Hill, also stood on this very spot to see this monument officially dedicated. They were the first of but many generations of veterans, which now includes myself and many others here, who likewise have stood on this battlefield and paused to reflect on the service and sacrifice of those patriots of 1775. The Battle of Bunker Hill has been commemorated here for 2.5 centuries. And while there were many battles of the Revolutionary War fought over an enormous geographical area, few other battles have been bestowed with this almost unbearable responsibility for telling a story of national origin and significance born from so few violent minutes of musket fire. Therefore, it becomes difficult to talk about this battle without resorting to often repeated truisms, such as explaining that the Battle of Bunker Hill was actually fought on, as some knew it, Breed's Hill. Debating who said, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes," or even whether it was said at all. And concluding with the coda that despite the fact that the British troops won the day, colonial Americans inflicted more casualties, as though casualties alone dictated the outcome of continental wars. These broad narratives and pieces of military trivia can often obfuscate the personal experiences of men like Peter Brown from Westford, Massachusetts, or Jude Hall from Exeter, New Hampshire, who stood at this spot 251 years ago to the minute. For these young men, this was a battle fought at close range, muzzle to muzzle. Before the 17th, most of the men here had never pointed a weapon at another human being and squeezed a trigger. Imagine for a moment standing in the ranks, whether on this hill or just below it, anticipating the crashing volley fire of your opponent's muskets and waiting in that awful moment of silence before fate or your opponent's aim dictated how long or short your life would be. In that moment, you would likely see in your peripheral vision the man to your left or the man to your right. Now, that man might be someone you knew from childhood, from your hometown, or that man could have been a stranger from a different community, a different colony, maybe even a different race than your own. But you counted on that man to execute his duties, just as he was counting on you to do the same. Men convincing each other that they were still brave up until the roar of the guns. And then the only goal that mattered, to survive. Survive the next moment, the next charge, the next volley. Survive 120 violent, crowded minutes. Some men did not survive, while others lived to see the mid-19th century. In the decades following the battle, how did veterans reflect on their service here, or the legacy of what they experienced? Only 11 lived to see the completion of this monument. You'll notice, of course, that there are no names or dates on the obelisk, nothing carved on the granite. Instead, for some, the permanent legacy of their service etched in stone must be found elsewhere. Peter Brown, who survived the battle, finished his military service after 8 months. And although he lived until the age of 76, the 8 months he spent was meaningful enough that carved into his headstone was simply stated, he was a soldier in the Revolution. Would he, as a veteran who thrived in the last 5 decades of his life, enjoying rights and responsibilities as a citizen of a new republic, been satisfied with the recognition of his service? I think so. Jude Hall, conversely, served for a total of 7 years during the war. When he passed away at the age of 80, his burial place in Exeter remained unmarked for centuries until a headstone was installed in the year 2000, likewise memorializing the fact that Hall fought at the Battle of Bunker Hill. How might Hall have reflected as a veteran on his service in the twilight of his life? Unlike Peter Brown, Jude Hall was born as property, and he fought here while enslaved. While he self-emancipated through his valor and service, his own children, in fact, were re-enslaved, never to be reunited with their father. When Hall applied for a military pension in 1818, 9 years before his death, what would he have thought about this nation's recognition of his service? What was his recompense as a veteran for his lost children? For both men, it was not memorialization that motivated their service. What did, I think, is the same which is hoped for by veterans of any age and conflict. Rather, that their service and sacrifice is honored best, not by being petrified into stone, but in the laws, conduct, and wise governance of the nation for which they fought. It is therefore the task of all citizens, whether a veteran or not, to ensure that such a government live up to the legacy of those who fought here. They fought for one another, for their homes, for their families, and for a hope for freedom and equality unshackled from political, economic, and personal bondage. The legacy of the revolution and its veterans is therefore a call to action for every American generation duty-bound to listen for and respond to. Let us be that legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranger Boyce. David Clay, British Council General, will speak next.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody. Representative Ryan Merwu, thank you for your kind words about the Tartan Army in coming to Boston and the amazing welcome they've had. It's brilliant to see that they've had a slightly warmer welcome than another British Army 251 years ago. But seriously, I think if the soldiers of 251 years ago could have looked forward and seen the amazing welcome that our football fans have received in Boston over the last few days, the friendships that have sprung up between our fans and Bostonians, I think they would have been absolutely thrilled to see what the passage of time has wrought. As I said, it's a pleasure to be here today. I'd like to thank the National Park Service of Boston, the American Legion, and the Bunker Hill Monument Association for your work in organising this ceremony. I hope that everyone attending here today has had a chance to take a look at the 1,500 American and British flags on the way in. These were planted on Friday by members of our communities, and each one honours the memory of those who gave their lives here on June the 17th, 1775. On behalf of my government, I'd like to thank the organisers for this powerful acknowledgement of those British soldiers that died in the Battle of Bunker Hill. I think that this gesture really reflects the strength of our modern relationship. It's not something I take for granted, and I'm truly grateful for it. With the passage of so many years, I think it would be easy to think of these flags as just symbols. But they don't represent nameless, faceless soldiers. They represent individuals, people with hopes, dreams, and loved ones waiting for their return. Some were professional soldiers serving the British Crown. Others were colonial farmers, merchants, and tradesmen who'd taken up arms in cause of freedom. All of them paid an enormous price, and it's an honour to remember them here at this ceremony today. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that many of you were able to hear His Majesty King Charles's speech to Congress a couple of months ago. Every time I get up to speak about the 250th anniversary of the Revolution, I feel that speech sort of looming behind me. It was such a wonderful expression of our shared history and an exploration of the meaning of the anniversary in our modern relationship, and he's a very hard act to follow. But one part of the speech that really stuck with me was what he said about how our shared democratic values have shaped our shared history, even at moments when we are in dispute. One of the principles that shaped the revolution and motivated those patriots who stood at Bunker Hill, no taxation without representation, was at the same time a fundamental disagreement between us, but also a shared value inherited from our political, legal, and social traditions. And as we stand here, 251 years on, that bitter division has transformed into one of history's most remarkable reconciliations and alliances, shaped by those shared values and traditions that the King talked about. The journey from adversaries to allies was not inevitable, however. It required generations of leaders and citizens on both sides to find common ground, rebuild trust, and discover that those values which once divided us, independence, self-determination, and liberty, could ultimately unite us in common purpose. The path was neither short nor straightforward. Yet today, as we mark the solemn anniversary, we can take pride in the special relationship our nations have forged. Those stars and stripes and Union Jacks planted side by side are a reminder of that present-day partnership, an alliance built on shared values, mutual respect, and common purpose. From adversaries on the battlefield to steadfast allies through 2 world wars and countless global challenges, the journey of our 2 countries remind us that even the deepest divisions can, in time, give way to understanding and partnership. So as we reflect on the sacrifice of those who fell here, we acknowledge that history is not simply about celebrating victories or lamenting defeats. It is about understanding how even the most difficult chapters can lead to positive transformation. Thank you for joining us here in this act of remembrance. May the memory of those who fell continue to inspire us, and may the partnership between our nations continue to flourish for centuries to come. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Dan Noonan, Commander, American Legion, J.W. Conway, Bunker Hill Post 26.
They had to have me behind the tallest person around. There really is somebody back here, believe me. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I represent the veterans of Charlestown, and it's a pleasure to represent the veterans every year and to work with the National Parks and the Bunker Hill Monument Association to put on all the festivities that we have throughout the week. And it takes many, many people to do it, and it's not a chore, it's a pleasure. We all enjoy doing it, and we all keep coming back each year. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we gather today to commemorate the historic Battle of Bunker Hill, we honor the timeless legacy of bravery, sacrifice, and community that defined our nation's first patriots. Joining us to carry forward that enduring promise of service is our Commonwealth's leader for veteran advocacy. He is a graduate of the United States Naval Academy and a proud Navy veteran. Eventually, they'll give me an Air Force person to introduce. Following his military service, he dedicated over 2 decades to saving lives as an emergency medicine physician, health system leader, and associate professor at the Harvard Medical School. Recently appointed by Governor Maura Healey, he now commands the state's efforts to ensure our heroes receive the highest standard of care, support, and dignity. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Eric Gralnick, Secretary of the Massachusetts Executive Office of Veteran Services.
Thank you so much, Dan, for that wonderful intro. Mayor, Representative, Council General, dignitaries, Commander Schaefer, thank you so much for sharing the stage today. And thank you to the National Park Service, American Legion, and the Bunker Hill Monument Association for establishing this event and hosting it. And thank you to our active duty military members who are here today, our veterans, and our families. Thank you for what you do for us every day to protect our freedom. Well, I had a speech prepared, but all my jokes were used up. The Tartan Army, the World Cup, Irish exit, actually an Irish exit, because he's long gone. So I'll channel my classmate from the Naval Academy, Megan, who said, "Be bold, be brief, be gone." So I really only have 2 things to focus on today. One is the Sojourn flag, which I believe is going to be escorted up front here. So the Sojourn flag is a flag that has traveled this country. It's actually been to almost all the 50 states. It's been to every cemetery across the globe where service members, U.S. service members, have been buried. It's been to every U.S. territory, and it's finishing here in the original 13 colonies, and will end up in Washington, D.C. And really, this flag symbolizes so much of our rich history of 250 years, and has been an event that has occurred really over the last several months, and a mission that this flag can represent collectively our community and our commitment to freedom and democracy. So I wanted to take a moment here to thank our honor guard here for their presentation and their attention to detail in this process in commemorating the Sojourn Flag's journey here to Massachusetts. So thank you. Thank you so much. So the second task I get to do is read a proclamation from the governor and lieutenant governor and the secretary of the Commonwealth. So bear with me, and we're going to present this to our leadership from the National Park Service. A proclamation from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, whereas on June 17, 1775, the Battle of Bunker Hill was fought on the Charlestown Peninsula during the early months of the American Revolution, marking one of the first major military engagements between colonial forces and the British Army. And whereas, although the battle resulted in a tactical victory for British forces, the determination, courage, and sacrifice demonstrated by colonial militia inspired the cause of American independence and proved that citizen soldiers could stand against a professional army. And whereas the Battle of Bunker Hill occupies a distinguished place in the history of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the United States, symbolizing the enduring values of liberty, self-government, civic responsibility, and perseverance. And whereas generations of residents, historians, veterans, educators, and community organizations have preserved and commemorated the legacy of those who served and sacrificed during the battle, ensuring that future generations understand its significance. And whereas Bunker Hill Day provides an opportunity to reflect upon the founding ideals of our nation, honor those who fought for freedom, and celebrate the rich historical heritage of Charlestown, Boston, and the Commonwealth. Now, therefore, I, Maura T. Healey, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim June 17, 2026 to be Bunker Hill Day, and urge all the residents of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given at the Executive Chamber in Boston this first day of June in the year 2026, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 249th, by Her Excellency, Maura T. Healey, Governor of the Commonwealth, Kimberly Driscoll, Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth, William Francis Galvin, Secretary of the Commonwealth. Thank you. So that's it. So now I get the pleasure of introducing a friend, a colleague, shipmate, fellow former sailor, Commissioner Rob Santiago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Dan, so you know, as the second shortest person, I had to follow the second tallest person up here as well. So just to let you know. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for those kind words. Mayor Wu, first and foremost, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me the honor and the awesome responsibility to be the Commissioner of Veteran Services in this great city here in Boston. So thank you, Mayor Wu. Yeah, give it up for the mayor. A couple other people that I would like to recognize. I would like to recognize the Captain Commanding John Dimiano of the Ancient and Honorables and all the Ancient and Honorables that are here today. Along with the Ancient and Honorables is Brigadier General John Driscoll and my good friend Lieutenant John Mitchell as well, two Johns. This past weekend, I had the privilege and the honor to attend two events. One of them was the DAV State Convention in Plymouth, and the other of them was a Gold Star event for Gold Star families and spouses in Lynn. And what those two events reminded me is how special this community is, because it's a family affair, this veterans community. But before I continue, I want to congratulate Navy veteran Dennis Devine on his election as state commander of the Disabled American Vets, and also his daughter, Allison, who is now the state commander of the auxiliary of the Disabled American Vets. Dennis couldn't be here today because he's taken on one of life's most important duties, and that's being a grandfather. But in his place are two past state commanders, Bob Kingsman and Bob Brunson, who are here in the crowd today. For me, standing here at Bunker Hill during the 250th anniversary of our nation is both an honor and it's a humbling responsibility. This community of Charlestown holds a special place in America's story. It was here that citizens became patriots. It was here that the spirit of service that helped build this nation took root. From the Battle of Bunker Hill to the Charlestown Navy Yard, generations in this community have answered the call to serve. You can still see that legacy today in the many hero squares you see throughout the neighborhood. And right here to my right, the trench, the archaeological trench that's in partnership with the City of Boston and the American Veterans Archaeology Recovery Team. 251 years ago, everyday men stood on this ground knowing that the odds were against them. They were workers, they were fathers, they were sailors, tradesmen, and everyday neighbors. Yet, they believed so deeply in the promise of freedom that they were willing to risk everything. And as my shipmate Bill said, those men became the first veterans. Today, we remember not only the battle that they fought, but the sacrifices that came afterwards. Before there were veterans organizations, before there were veterans benefits, memorials, or ceremonies like this, there were veterans carrying wounds, families carrying loss, and communities rebuilding after sacrifice. Myself, as a retired Navy veteran and former crew member of the USS Constitution, which is one of the greatest honors of my life, I am reminded that the people that we celebrate today in history were not legends when they served. They were ordinary people, ordinary common Americans who stepped forward when their country needed them. We honored their legacy by standing beside today's veterans and military families. We honor them by ensuring that veterans receive the benefits that they have earned and deserve, and the support that they need. The contract that our nation makes with those who serve does not end when their service ends. It must continue for a lifetime. Veterans come from many different generations, branches of service, and backgrounds, but there is an immediate bond between us veterans. We look after one another. We lift each other up. We celebrate together. And when the times are difficult, we stand together. This connection extends to their families as well. As I've told you, with the journey with Dennis and his daughter, Allison, in what they shared. And that demonstrates the strength of these remarkable bonds. That is because the veterans community is more than an organization. It is more than a network of people. It is a family that's connected by duty, a family that's connected by sacrifice, courage, and love of this country. A family that stretches from men who stood on this hill in 1775 to the service members wearing the uniform today. Here in Charlestown, that family bond can be found in places like American Legion Post 26 and Memorial Hall. And of course, on board old Ironsides, places where veterans gather, where stories are shared, where traditions are preserved, and no one has to carry life burdens alone. So as we commemorate this historic anniversary, let us remember the first veterans who stood on this hill, support those who serve today, and inspire those future generations to carry this legacy forward for another 251 years and beyond. Thank you. Right now, it is my honor to call up to the stage Commander Crystal L. Schaefer, who is the 78th Commanding Officer of USS Constitution here in Charlestown. She took command back in June 2024. She is the second woman to ever serve the world's oldest commissioned warship afloat, and she was recently selected for promotion to captain. Ladies and gentlemen, Commander Crystal Schaefer.
Good afternoon, everybody. I will say first I want to acknowledge Mayor Wu, Representative Ryan, for all the elected officials that are here, to Mr. David Clay, honored for you to be here, Secretary Gorlick, Commissioner Santiago, always a pleasure for a former crew member, and to all of our distinguished guests who are here today. On behalf of the crew of the USS Constitution and myself, it is an honor and privilege to be such of a part of a prestigious and a noble ceremony. The Battle of Bunker Hill demonstrated the resolve of Americans willing to sacrifice for liberty and our freedoms. Though the USS Constitution was not part of the Revolutionary War, her service, most notably during the War of 1812, she serves as a living link to America's earliest years and symbolizes the United States Navy's and America's 250-year legacy of defending freedom, secured by those early patriots. The courage displayed back then on this very hill, forged in a nation founded on liberty and today's Navy, continues to build on that legacy by reviving the warrior ethos, restoring trust in our military, and ensuring our highly skilled sailors and Marines are ready and resilient to meet any mission. While we honor our past, today, along with many other days throughout the year, we have an opportunity to reflect on our shared future. Building strong networks from our international allies to our strong local communities, like one right here in Boston. It is essential to preserve the ideals of liberty for future generations. So thank you again for this amazing opportunity. And if anybody was out in the Navy Yard today, we also celebrated down at the Charlestown Navy Yard with an underway commemorating this very battle here. So it has been a very busy day for my crew and myself. The next speaker here, I got to meet her this morning as she came on board Constitution. So I do want to introduce the next speaker is Jessica Bowren, the Comptroller exercising the authority of the Director from the National Park Service.
Thankfully, we're about the same height, although her hat might have edged me out a little bit. Thank you, Commander Schaefer. Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here with you today on behalf of the National Park Service as we commemorate the 251st anniversary of the Battle of Bunker Hill. I want to thank Superintendent Torona Armstrong and the National Parks of Boston team, the Bunker Hill Monument Association, our elected officials, military representatives, veterans, community partners, and everyone gathered here today. Over the course of this ceremony, we have reflected on the events of June 17, 1775, and the extraordinary individuals whose actions helped shape the course of American history. As we stand here today, surrounded by this monument and this historic landscape, I am reminded that places like Bunker Hill serve a unique purpose. They allow us to connect with history in a way that books, documents, and even websites cannot. Here we stand where history happened. We can look across the same ground where men faced uncertainty, danger, and sacrifice. We can reflect on the choices they made and the legacy they left behind. That connection is one of the reasons the National Park Service preserves places like Bunker Hill. Our mission is not simply to protect monuments and historic sites. It is to ensure that future generations can continue to experience these sites, learn from them, and find meaning in them. For more than a century, this monument has stood as a reminder of courage, sacrifice, and perseverance. It has witnessed generations of Americans gathering to commemorate the past, honor those who came before them, and reflect on the enduring ideals that continue to shape our nation. These gatherings matter. They remind us that history is not something distant or disconnected from our lives. It is a shared inheritance. The decisions made here more than 2 centuries ago continue to influence the nation we live in today. As our nation commemorates 250 years of independence, places like Bunker Hill provide an opportunity not only to remember the past, but also to consider what we hope to pass on to future generations. The National Park Service is proud to help preserve these places and stories so that Americans today and 251 years from now can continue to learn from them. Thank you for joining us today and for helping ensure that the legacy of Bunker Hill endures. It's now my privilege to introduce Erin Calkins, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Fish and Wildlife and Parks at the U.S. Department of the Interior. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you to all of the other speakers who've spoken to us here today, and especially thank you to the school choir who shared their talents with us at the beginning of this program. It is a privilege to join you today on behalf of the Department of the Interior as we commemorate the 251st anniversary of the Battle of Bunker Hill. I want to thank the National Parks of Boston, the Bunker Hill Monument Association, the American Legion, our state and local partners, members of the military, veterans, community leaders, and all those who have gathered here today with us. 251 years ago, the American patriots who stood here did not know what the future would hold. They did not know that in a little more than 1 year, America would declare independence. They did not know that 251 years later, we would be gathered here today to honor their sacrifice. Yet they stood steadfast next to each other in a shared commitment and belief in their right to freedom. They stood bravely and unflinchingly, willing to sacrifice their livelihoods and even their lives if necessary for their belief in a better future. That devotion to freedom has echoed throughout American history. Generation after generation, Americans have continued to answer the call to serve. And today, we are especially grateful to the veterans and military personnel with us. On behalf of the Department of the Interior, thank you for your service. As we celebrate 250 years of American independence, communities across the country are honoring the people, places, and events that shaped our nation. President Trump has called for a grand celebration worthy of this historic milestone, and we aim to deliver. Bunker Hill is among the places where our American story began, and as we prepare to celebrate America's 250th birthday this July 4th, may we draw inspiration from those who stood on this hill 251 years ago, brave and steadfast. May we honor their legacy, not only through remembrance, but through a commitment to our communities and our country. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for helping ensure that the courage and sacrifice demonstrated here at Bunker Hill, those long 251 years ago, continues to inspire all Americans. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Calkins. As we near the end of today's remembrance ceremony, we invite you to turn your attention to your right, where the sons of the American Revolution of Massachusetts and Connecticut will sound 3 ceremonial volleys. Following musket fire, bugler James Normington and Master Sergeant Robert Bean will perform the last post in taps, followed by a moment of silence. You may be seated. Please welcome Aaron Woods, co-president of the Bunker Hill Monument Association, to the stage.
First, I'd like to thank everyone who came out today, especially the speakers, for your thoughtful remarks. I'd also like to recognize and thank the veterans who are present today, and also active duty military. Without you, none of this would be possible. The mission of the Bunker Hill Monument Association is deeply personal to me, as I am also a member of the Paul Revere chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. I have a deep admiration and respect for the individuals and organizations who continue 251 years later to honor the memory of the brave patriots who fought for the freedoms we enjoy today. Here in Charlestown, one of the greatest stewards of our revolutionary history is the National Park Service, a valued partner of the BHMA. Not only do they maintain these beautiful grounds and our beautiful monument, but they also help tell the story of our nation's history. I could share many examples of this, but the most recent was 4 days ago on the first night of the monument illumination. I was standing with Jason Newman from National Park Service, and we saw a group of children laying on their backs, calling out the historic quotes as they appeared on the monument. Watching that moment, seeing history come alive for the next generation, is exactly what this is all about. So I'll leave you with this. Every day in Charlestown, we walk on land that was once a vast battlefield stretching across this entire neighborhood, the very ground where the Battle of Bunker Hill was fought. Charlestown, be proud of your role in the shaping of our nation. It's a legacy few communities can claim. Let us honor it, let us tell its story, and let us never forget it. Thank you. And next, Superintendent Armstrong from National Parks.
What a spectacular and inspiring program. Thank all of you for joining us today. And on behalf of the National Parks of Boston, thank all of our speakers, partners, distinguished guests, and all of you that have joined us, taking time out of your schedule to be here with us today. Being here, you have become a part of the 251-year history of the scar site and our national story. Thank you once again. And next, it's a benediction from Chaplain Major Alex Liu.
Would you please stand with me to receive the benediction? As we conclude this year's commemoration, may we depart with renewed gratitude for the courage displayed at Bunker Hill and throughout our nation's history. May the memory of those who sacrificed inspire us to live with purpose, serve with honor, and lead with conviction. May God grant us the wisdom to cherish liberty, the strength to defend what is right, and the humility to seek the common good. May He bless all who labor for peace, justice, and freedom. And may the same spirit of courage that stirred the hearts of those patriots in June of 1775 continue to guide and strengthen us today and in the years ahead. So go forth in remembrance, in gratitude, and in hope. God bless you all, and God bless America. Amen.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will now have a wreath laying at the Colonel William Prescott statue. So please join us over by the statue, and that concludes this afternoon's ceremony.